You're listening to the Public Health Entrepreneurs Podcast with your host, Dr. Charlotte Huntley. Greetings, everyone, and thank you for joining me on this episode. We are celebrating 100 episodes of the Public Health Entrepreneurs Podcast. This is the podcast for visionary leaders who are ready to transform public health and healthcare through innovation. I'm your host, Dr. Charlotte Huntley, and as a public health entrepreneur with over 25 years of experience in both healthcare and public health, I understand the unique challenges and opportunities that come along with bridging multiple disciplines. If you are an interdisciplinary professional, a high-functioning leader with expertise across different fields, then you know exactly what it's like to see opportunities that others miss. You understand the gaps in our current systems, and you have a lot of great ideas about how to make things better. But sometimes having unique perspectives can also feel isolating, especially when it seems as though others really aren't as excited about your ideas or as open to your ideas as you would like them to be. You may even feel a bit divided across some of the different disciplines or fields of expertise that you have. I definitely understand, and it is exactly why we have focused this podcast to serve you with the type of support that you need on this journey. Now, on the episode today, we are celebrating 100 episodes. Now, I'm smiling really big as I'm recording this. I'm also traveling and recording this as I'm on the road as opposed to my normal studio setup. But that's okay. I'm prepared and I'm excited because this is a huge milestone. As we celebrate 100 episodes, that means that we've been producing 2 episodes a week since we started this podcast in April of 2024. We've been publishing episodes every Monday and Tuesday. If you've been listening for a while and following, then you're used to that pattern and that cadence. Our first goal when we started the podcast was to continue that pace through the end of 2024. I wanted to be able to make it to the end of the year and then decide if we could continue that or not. Well, we made it to the end of 2024 and I said, okay, we're going to keep going. The second goal was to reach 100 episodes at this pace of Monday and Thursday podcast episode releases. Let me just tell you that it feels very accomplished, I guess, is a great way to describe it. To be reaching this milestone is huge for me and for my team. So we hit the first goal of going through the end of 2024 at that pace, and now we've hit 100 episodes, and we're almost 1 year into the podcast, and it is just very exciting to be at this point. There is so much that I wanted to share in starting this podcast. There's so much that I wanted to share that by having twice weekly episodes, it gave me the opportunity to pour into the podcast right up front loaded and have it become a solid reference, sort of like establishing a solid reference base to help you on this journey. Now, some of the lessons learned, well, hosting and producing multiple podcasts is a lot of work. Let me just put that right out there. It is a lot of work. Publishing episodes twice per week is a heavy lift, a very heavy lift, even with a team and lots of support. We have a fantastic podcast team and a great deal of support, and it is still a very heavy lift across the board. Now, here's a fun fact. While I'm celebrating 100 episodes here on this podcast, on my other podcast, Public Health Epidemiology Conversations, we'll be celebrating 400 episodes in just a couple of weeks. That is phenomenal, a little like a milestone on top of a milestone. But I've been able to attract an audience of people who appreciate the information that I share on this podcast. I've had several meetings with a lot of great feedback from people who are multidisciplinary professionals with tons of great ideas about solving problems, public health problems. And I know that the messages that I'm sending out on this podcast are being well received because I get some feedback, but I've been meeting with people who want to share where they are in their thought process and journey and explore opportunities to work together. So I know that we've been reaching, this has been falling on good ground. So that's rewarding to know that all of our effort has not been in vain. So let's talk a little bit about what's next, because now that I've shared all of that with you, we are now transitioning to once a week episodes. So we're going to have weekly episodes, and we've decided to continue with Thursdays. So we will release new episodes every Thursday moving forward, unless something shifts and we change that. Occasionally we may throw in a bonus episode, and that's absolutely fine. But in terms of regular numbered episodes, expect a cadence of every Thursday to be our new pace moving forward. So I will continue to help you by sharing tips and strategies for your business. And you are encouraged to submit your questions to us as well. I've asked that in the past, and so we really want to bring that back up. So we would love to be able to select your question that you submit and bring it to one of the podcast episodes and answer it on the podcast. I think that if you submit your questions, oftentimes it may be representative of what other people are wondering about as well. So forms that we've used in the past for this have been revised because we realized that people would submit questions anonymously, but they weren't complete questions or formed questions that I could actually bring to the podcast. And so we want to be able to, we've revised the form so that we can collect your contact information. So there's two parts to that. You may ask a question that we want to follow up and get a little bit more clarity so that I can make sure I'm answering, it's in a form that I can actually answer on an episode. And then we also want to be able to let you know that your episode, an upcoming episode, is going to be featuring the question that you submitted. And I'd love to be able to also include a shout out. So I may not use your whole name, but maybe I'll say, this was submitted by Mary, who asked this, whatever the question is. And maybe, just mention your first name. Or if you don't want your name at all, we can just simply say, one of our listeners submitted this question. So we don't have to include your name if you don't want that, but we want to be able to let you know that your question is being answered so that you'll know to tune in for that. So if you submitted a question previously to this podcast and it has not been answered yet on the podcast, I encourage you to please submit it again and make sure that we have your contact information this time so that we can follow up and also let you know that it is being featured. Thank you so much for following this podcast and being such a supporter of this podcast. I do have one ask of you as we begin to wrap up, because next stage for us is, of course, continued growth. And that happens with your help. So for us to continue to make this podcast available and continue to improve and grow and cater it to answering questions that you have, we would like for you to help us continue to grow the podcast. So to celebrate our milestone of this podcast, I'm asking you to please share with someone in your network or provide a positive rating or review if you haven't done that already. If you have already, thank you so much. But if you have not, this will be the perfect time to take a moment, write a review, something that you like about the podcast, and share it publicly, because, those reviews matter when we're shopping as consumers and we're looking at reviews and ratings from other people who have purchased that product or service. Then it makes us feel a little bit more confident about our decision to purchase it as well. So when people see those positive ratings and reviews, it makes them decide that, okay, well, maybe I do want to tune into this podcast. And that would be one of the best ways that you can celebrate with us. And it would be so appreciated by me and my team as well. So again, if you have not done so already, please share this podcast with your network and provide a positive rating and or review on one of the podcast apps to let people know, why you like it. That means the world to us. And I am excited and look forward to your support, your continued support. All right, everyone. Until next time, have a fantastic rest of your day. Thank you for listening. Visit publichealthentrepreneurs.com to learn more.